Hello, this is John Speelman with this month's column. I think it's number 218. Let's have a look. Is it 218 or yeah, it is 218. And dated August the 4th. That's Sunday. I'm doing this on Saturday. I did the writing earlier, and I've called it Analysis in the Oracle. It's just basically it's some interesting positions from last month. So I've got three of them. I did a little introduction talking about how it's a busy time of the year and how Beale now does what they call a triathlon of classical chess, rapid play and blitz. But really, I mean, the most interesting chess normally is classical chess, even if it's slightly on the way out. I don't know. Not yet. They still play very interesting games. And so I've got two positions from a position from Beale, a game from Beale, and then I've got a position for the British Championship as well. Just some things I looked at. And I was talking about really how you analyse, and saying that when I analyse, often what I do is I turn on an engine just for long enough to get an assessment and then turn it off again. So I do know what I'm looking for, but I don't know what it is. So that's slightly cheating, I suppose, but it does mean, for instance, in the rook ending I'm going to show you, it was definitely, I knew I was looking for a win, though I couldn't find it for quite a while. I was looking with a guy who managed to persuade me not to turn an engine off, so well done him. That's my... Right, let's go into ChessBase, and we'll open the column, and we'll look at this position from Beale. It's a rook ending, Martirosyan Kama. I don't know much about the game or anything about the game. They started here about, and I don't actually know anything much about these moves up to here. Okay. They got to this position. He didn't play rook d6, but he got on with it immediately. And they got to this position, which is where I knew that when I had an engine on, I discovered. So the first question is, would you play h6 check in this position? I think I might well do so, actually. It seems to gain a useful tempo. But as it happens, it's a mistake. And I'll show you first what happened in the game. So he's driven him back, but the king goes to h8, which is actually the best square. Now black has to defend like this. He's got to stop king g6. And the thing is, the king is already on h8, which is not a bad square. And white ended up doing some move, and then playing check. And now, because of the threat of rook a6, you get to take this pawn. And because the pawn's on h6, you can't support it, and it's a draw. If it was an h5, I think it probably would be a win, though it might be a little bit complicated. But with a pawn on h6, there's no real chance. There's no chance at all. So we go back to the starting position. And what he should have done here is just to go check. And so originally I looked at king g8, and that wasn't very interesting. So you go d5, a3, d6, and now you're threatening to win at once. a2, if you go rook b4, just check. This, I think, is winning now, as we said. It's not. I'm going to turn on an engine now and ask it. But basically, with the pawn on h5, I believe this is a winning position. Black can win the d pawn, but white still wins with the two kingside pawns. If we ask that, it does say plus minus. Okay. But the interesting line, so we'll turn off the engine again, because that wasn't very important to me. The really interesting line goes check, king f8. So I thought, so now d5, d6 isn't really going to work, because you're going to be able to move your king over to e8. And the question is whether white can win now. And he can do so, though it's really quite complicated. And I suggested you have a little look and see what you can do, but as I said, it took me analysing with a guy I was teaching, a strong player I was teaching, a quarter of an hour or something, so probably you'll want to let me show you. So it starts h6, so now he does go h6, and now this gains a tempo, because you're threatening h7, so you go back. Now you push your pawn, and again black plays the excellent move rook b4. Has to do that, there's nothing else to be done. So g4 threatens h7 check and king h6 and mates, which is why the king was better in the game. In the game it would have been on h8. It was an h8. If you'd played g4 it would have been an h8. So black's best defence is to play king h8, because now you can't play king g6. If you start going king f5 a2, we get the same sort of thing we got before. I think if you go king f5 a2, rook checks, king up, rook a1, rook b6, then you get the same sort of position. White gets in g5 actually there, but then you start checking him, and you manage to get your king to the excellent square g6, after which you are drawing, I believe. I'll do that in a minute. I'll play through that with an engine, because the winning move is to play just king h5. Black plays a2, and now you realise that you can let him queen. You go beautiful move g5. So now if pawn equals queen, you play rook d8 check, king h7. It's the main line. This beautiful checkmate. And it turns out that from this position onwards, white is playing any move. So this is a study of sorts, you could say. Oh, by the way, if they go rook h4 check, you just play king g6. Now if we go back, let's just go back to the line where black... Sorry, have I lost this? Check, check. Indeed. I'm going h6, king g8. Have I got I thought I had a line that... I'm sorry, I'm getting confused now. That was that. Rook hits king to there. h6, king to there. d5. a3. d6. This is all forced, isn't it? This is actually all forced. Yeah, this doesn't win. That's right. This is what I was trying to say. Okay. Right. So this is this very beautiful variation. And yeah, it turns out that is the only way to win. That, for instance, is a draw. Yes. Okay. I'm sorry I've slightly got confused by myself, but the main line is the one with h6, d5, d6, g4, king h5, and then the mate with g6. The next one, this is also from Beal. This is this game, Prague against Mishra. Mishra, this Indian American guy who's was a grandmaster at the youngest ever. He was 12 years, 4 months and something, less than 12 and a half. And he's obviously a very strong player now. He was first equal in the classical in Beal. with whoever he was first equal with. Who was he first equal with? Let's find Switzerland. He was first equal with Lee in the classical bit of the Grand Prix, or the triathlon as they called it. So this is, I mean, there's lots of opening theory which I don't know. I'm not an e4 player, but they got to this position. Guy went knight a5. I think people had played g5 before. Presumably it's better to drive the bishop back first, and went g5. And here, if you go bishop g3 now, takes, then because of the attack on the e-pawn you end up playing this move, and it's not particularly impressive for white. Of course you can play it, but after knight c6 I think is just a move. Black is a pawn up. Of course you want to unplay g5, but can't be helped. You're pretty sound, your bishops are quite good, and I think the engine gives it as about equal. So the interesting thing, so he sacrificed. King g7, knight d2. Well, I could try to force a draw with queen g3, and then you can either go knight h5, which does force a draw immediately, or you can try to play, also you can play rook g8 here, to there, king to there, and this position can be played. I mean, you've got, I wouldn't mind playing this as black. I think the king looks fairly safe. I mean, again, the engine says you've got sort of enough, but you've certainly not got more than enough for white, I would say. Anyway, he just developed his pieces. Okay, so now Mishra had a long think, and he played queen c8, and it turns out that this was a mistake. Almost impossible, I think, to know this. I mean, it doesn't look like it is. And the reason is very, very obscure, really. So I'll show you, sorry, the analysis. I mean, queen d7 is the move you should play, apparently. So the engine gives queen to there, knight h7, takes, check. No, he should have gone check, here, check. And now, after f6, you take it, which is really, really difficult. I mean, you can see it's a legal move, but I would find it almost impossible to assess this position from afar, certainly before black played queen c8. If the queen was in d7, of course, this would be absolute nonsense. You just play knight h7 and nothing would happen. But here, after here, you take, and now queen e6 is apparently the best move. If you go king, and it gives knight e4, and what does it say? Let me ask it, because it doesn't make, none of this makes much sense to me. Says white is slightly better. We'll say plus equals, shall we? It's saying plus over line, we'll say plus equals. And the thing is that if you take this, then something unfortunate happens. Now you do actually lose. And you're blown apart by the attack. So this was really, really difficult. And I think this is probably beyond the human compass of analysis, because even if you analyse up the bishop to f4, takes e5, takes f6 and e5, then to know that it's actually good for white, or at least no worse than equal, is very, very, very hard, I think. You know, the assessment is almost impossible from that far. Anyway, what happened was he actually went check, which is less good. The king had to go there, because otherwise queen takes pawn with check. And could he have made a draw now by going... Maybe he could have made a draw by going Queen H4. Yeah, he can still make it a draw. Let's just do this. Just make a draw. Would have been a sensible thing to do. But he actually went Knight F3, Queen E6. Now it's finally starting to get a little bit dangerous, I think. Knight H4 he played. Apparently still there was still a way to play this, wasn't there? Knight takes E5, Queen takes that, and it turns out that this is actually enough for a draw. Actually, again, the assessment's really hard. You imagine it with two pieces. You don't get King H8 now because the bishop takes knight and rook D7, and that's bad. But you can play bishop C6, and the engine says something about E6 here, rook to there being equal. And again, I mean, I don't think that this is equal. Apparently, yeah, I see I've misspelt, and a long screed. But basically, again, very difficult. I suppose Knight H4 though. Once you do this, given that you can't play Knight F5 because of the pin on the diagonal, just Queen takes Knight and Rook takes Queen, then now Black is better. So you could have avoided Knight H4 probably, just on the grounds that this is now a better position for Black, because the King's safe and you've only got two pawns, and Black's pieces are fine. His King's fine, everybody's fine now. So it continued, and there's a couple more moments of interest. He's just consolidating now, just playing sensible moves. Can go to F8 as well, he went to there. Trying to take the horse, takes this. But after Rook E6, it's all pretty ergonomic. And obviously White can fight, but you'd think he should lose in the end. In fact, he tried G4. So what do you do next? What are you going to do in this position? Well, there's a move that White has been trying to stop you playing, and so if you can play it, you do. And he does. He just goes F5, which is splendid. Queen takes, obviously pawn takes, bishop takes queen, loses even more pieces. And now he decided to give up the bishop, because if you go to E7 or to H3, then after rook, or to G3, after rook H3, it's basically the end of the game. So he played this move, and got at least a D pawn. And he carried on playing, which is good. I mean, really the two pieces are not coordinated. Still fights on, only a rook and a knight down at this point, and eventually Mishra persuades him to take the e-pawn. There's nothing better to do, and then you have this hit. Very, very tough game, and finally Pragg resigned. He really put in his shift, didn't he? So there's one more game to go. I'm just going to check. I'm having a nice little panic. Is this recording? And remarkably it is. A very good thing too. So the other thing was this final position from the British, in which Shreyas Royal agreed to draw with Gawain Jones. Very complicated game, I'm not going to worry. And basically they got to this position. Queen e4 check is bad, but would have been the best try. He tried b6 and offered a draw. I assume that the score sheet isn't wrong. If it is, I apologise, obviously, but still, it's still an interesting position to analyse. The question is, would you possibly agree a draw as White here? And it is quite scary, you know. Black has an attack. He's got two pawns and an attack. But I think if I saw the next three moves, I'd be pretty sanguine about not agreeing a draw. So you should go queen to there, queen to there, Can't go queen e5 because rook h6 check, so rook to there. And now you just take this pawn. So now let's look at the black queen first. The black queen can't go away from h6 because of rook takes pawn with check. And it can't go away from e8 because if you play something like queen d2, then there's rook takes bishop, rook takes pawn with check, and queen e8 mate. So actually the queen's in Zugzwang here. And so black has got, all black can do is to advance his pawns and try to get a hit. But he can't actually. And I mean, there are a couple of moves. c4 is a move. There's also b5, sorry. a3 is one move. If b4 takes rook d7 or g3, b3, g3, and black's in Zugzwang. If black could play, if the rook weren't on d7, then black could play queen d2, rook takes bishop, queen c2 check, queen takes queen, pawn takes, king takes, and then take back with the king on g7. I missed that myself first time round, and after recapturing the king on g7 be fine. But because this position is just simply absolute Zugzwang and it's sort of mate in a few moves, I mean there's nothing to be done at all, because you have to go off either either e8 or h6, and both are immediately fatal. So that's one line, and you can also play c4 first, I think, which is a bit a3. So probably you should play c4 really. Rook b7, and here you can go rook b7, or you can go c4, rook. Now there's a line with c4 as well, so I'm trying to find that, and that's the one where I went c4 first, rook to there, b5, a3, g3, and you can play different moves. The thing is now, now it's white who's in Zugzwang. If it was black to move, it would just be completely over, because you could push the pawns, but that wouldn't help in any way. In this position you play rook b7, and probably the best move actually is to play b4 now. If you play queen checks, take, here, rook to there just completely wins. If you go bishop to e5, you go rook to b7, and so you can go rook g1 check, king to here, pawn to there, rook checks, king to there, rook to there, bishop b5 check. And now the best thing to do now is just to play, well, you can play rook d2, or you can play king b3 as well. What you don't want to do is to go rook over and to allow rook checks and pawn equals queen. But if you just play king b3 first, that also completely wins, because now new variation, because you're threatening to mate on the back rank, and okay, there's no real problem here. But because if h4, just rook c6, and there's no check with the rook, so those both win. I think it's slightly better if we go back to play oh god, where is it? So I was going, I was saying that b4 takes queen d3 check is slightly better. This is a slightly better way to do it, I think, because now you don't have rook b3. And I just wanted to do this, rook h5, rook to there or something. And clearly you're going to win by a couple of tempi as white. there's going to be a little bit of a kerfuffle, but not much, for instance. Okay, so just little strange that he agreed to draw, but I said, of course, I was prone to agreeing draws under extreme stress as well. Unfortunately, Stress then lost his next game, didn't he? He went a bit off the boil after that, or he did anyway yesterday. Okay, right, I hope you've enjoyed this. I will be back on whatever the first Sunday is in September. I don't actually know at this moment. I'm going to go down there and look. You may or may not be able to see this. You probably can, actually. If we go to September, it will be September the 1st. I will be back. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed this. I'm sorry I found a rook ending. I got slightly lost for a minute. And have lots of fun. And see you in a month's time. And now we do the going back here and checking it's recording, which it is. Hooray, otherwise there'd be screaming which you wouldn't hear.